There was a white horse on a quiet winter morning when snow covered the streets gently and was not deep, and the sky was swept with vibrant stars, except in the east, where dawn was beginning in a light blue flood. The air was motionless, but would soon start to move as the sun came up and winds from Canada came charging down the Hudson. The horse had escaped from his master's small clapboard stable in Brooklyn. He trotted alone over the carriage road of Williamsburg Bridge before the light, while the toll keeper was sleeping by his stove, and many stars were still blazing above the city. Fresh snow on the bridge muffled his hoofbeats, and he sometimes turned his head and looked behind him to see if he was being followed. He was warm from his own efforts, and he breathed steadily, having loped 4 or 5 miles through the dead of Brooklyn past silent churches and shuttered stores. Far from the south, in the black ice-choked waters of the Narrows, a sparkling light marked the ferry on its way to Manhattan, where only marketmen were up, waiting for the fishing boats to glide down through Hell Gate and the night. The horse was crazy, but still he was able to worry about what he had done. He knew that shortly his master and mistress would arise and light the fire. Utterly humiliated, the cat would be tossed out the kitchen door to fly backward into a snow-covered sawdust pile. The scent of blueberries and hot batter would mix with the Where's my page turner? Here it is. With the sweet smell of pine fire, and not too long afterward his master would stride across the yard to the stable to feed him and hitch him up to the milk wagon. But he would not be there. This was a good joke, this defiance, which made his heart beat in terror, for he was sure his master would soon be after him. Though he realized that he might be subject to a painful beating, he sensed that his master was amused, pleased, and touched by rebellion as often as not, if it were in the proper form and done well, courageously. A shapeless, coarse revolt, such as kicking down the stable door, would occasion the whip, but not even then would the master always use it, because he prized a spirited animal, and he knew of and was grateful for the mysterious intelligence of this white horse, an intelligence that even he could not ignore, except at his peril and to his sadness. Besides, he loved the horse and did not really mind the chase through Manhattan, where the horse always went, since it afforded him the chance to enlist old friends in the search, and the opportunity of visiting a great number of saloons where he would inquire, over a beer or two, if anyone had seen his enormous and beautiful white stallion rambling about in the nude without bit, bridle, or blanket. The horse could not do without Manhattan. It drew him like a magnet, like a vacuum, like oats, or a mare, or an open, never-ending tree-lined road. He came off the bridge ramp and stopped short. 1,000 streets lay before him, silent, but for the sound of the gem-like wind, driven with white snow, empty, there a maze for his delights, as the newly arisen wind whistled across still past and shied from dead men laying in. Oops, I missed something. The sweet smell of pine and fire. A maze for his delight. Okay. A maze for his delight, as the newly arisen wind whistled across still untouched drift and rills. He passed empty theaters, counting houses and forestall wharfs where the snow-lined spars looked like long black groves of pine. He passed dark factories and deserted parks and rows of little houses where wood just fired filled the air with sweet reassurances. He passed the frightening common cellars full of rag pickers and men without limbs. The door of the marker bar was flung open momentarily for a torrent of boiling water that splashed all over the street in a cloud of steam. He passed and shied from dead men lying on the road, ragged coffins of their own frozen bodies. Sheds and wagons began to radiate from the markets, alive with the pull of their stocky dray horses, racing up the main streets, ringing bells, but he kept away from the markets because there was noontime even at dawn, and he followed the silent tributaries of the main streets, passing the exposed steelworks of buildings in the intermission of feverish construction. And he seldom out of sight of the new bridge which had married beautifully womanly Brooklyn to her rich Uncle Manhattan, and had put the city's hands out of the country, and were the deep end of the past, because they spanned not only distance and deep water, but dreams and time. The trail of the white horse, the tail of the white horse swished back and forth as he trotted briskly down avenues and boulevards. He moved like a dancer, which is not surprising. A horse is a beautiful animal, but it is perhaps most remarkable because it moves as if it is always hears music. Here, let me try that again. Is perhaps most remarkable because it moves as if it always hears music. With a certainty that perplexed him, the white horse moved south toward the Battery, which was visible down a long narrow street as a whitened field that was crossed by the long shadows of tall trees. By the Battery itself, the harbor took color with the new light, rocking in layers of green, silver, and blue. At the end of this polar rainbow on the horizon was a mass of white, the foil into which the entire city had been set. There was beginning to turn gold with the rising sun. The pale gold agitated the ascending waves of heat and refraction until it seemed to be a place of 1,000 cities or the border of heaven. The horse stopped to stare. His eyes, filled with golden light, issued from his nostrils as he stood in contemplation of the impossible and alluring disturbance. Impossible and alluring distance. He stayed in the street as if he were a statue, while the gold strengthened and boiled before him in a bed of blue. It seemed to be a perfect place, and he determined to go there. He started forward, but soon found that the street was blocked by a massy iron gate that closed off the Battery. He doubled back and went another way, only to find another gate of exactly the same design. Trying many streets, he came to many heavy gates, none of which was open. While he was stuck in this labyrinth, the gold grew in intensity and seemed to cover half the world. The empty white field was surely a way to the other perfect world, and though he had no idea of how he would cross the water, the horse wanted the Battery as if he had been born for it. He galloped desperately along the approachways, through the alleys, and over the snow-covered greens, always with an eye to the deepening gold. At the end of what seemed to be the last street leading to the open, he found yet another gate. Locked with a simple latch, he was breathing hard, and the condensed breath rose around his face. Okay,